founding of People's Republic of China in 1949, the party and the government started to develop domestic cultural strategy by mimicking the Soviet Union. The content of most art was under strict constraint, such as books and radio, and film, which was used as a propaganda tool in those days, was no exception. From 1949 to 1979, the Chinese film industry was wandering an age of conservatism. The film has solely been served as an official mouthpiece. Due to the lack of openness nor creativity, Chinese film couldn't really be classified as a form of cultural art, but a propaganda tool only. The government used films to constrain public sales and incited ordinary people to actively respond to the unified call and political decision. The frequent political movements helped the party gain full control over cultural ideology manipulation. Domestic cultural hegemony had been observed in Chinese film industry. The launch of Cultural Revolution in 1963 put political context further left. The functionality of films as a propaganda tool has been pushed to an extreme. According to incomplete statistics, over 600 films that were produced in the last 17 years has been banned per year to 1968. The legacy of early Chinese film industry development have been completely destroyed. During the Cultural Revolution of movements, Jiang Qing, one of the leaders of Cultural Revolution, not only banned the Chinese films, but even restricted to the release of films. Therefore, during the decade, Chinese people could only watch 8 modern movies rapidly. In the meantime, the number of cinema sharply declined as well. In 1979, there were only 2,650 cinemas left across the nation. The government used films to constrain public thoughts and incited ordinary people to actively respond to the unified call and political decision. The frequent political movements helped the party gain full control over cultural ideology manipulation. Domestic cultural hegemony had been observed in Chinese film industry.
One typical example of Chinese film produced during that time is Lei Feng since 1964. This film has been used as a so-called patriotic education movie until early 2000 years. The main character Lei Feng spent his whole life helping others voluntarily until a flood took his life. The government made Lei Feng an official moral model, and Chairman Mao once demanded the whole nation to study and follow the so-called Lei Feng spirit. For decades, Chinese people believed there was an actual honest man called Lei Feng and blindly worshipped the idea of serve the people, serve the party. Until recent years, more studies started to question the truth of the story and eventually found out that, apart from the name, everything else are most likely fictive.
This is a catastrophe of Chinese movies. When the 88-year-old Deng Xiaoping's speech on the sales tour appeared on the news, perhaps not many people really know what would happen next in China. Some media commented that he was seeking a new way for China's development. When the seeds of reform and opening up policy were planted in China's southern coastal cities, China would undergo regional changes, not only economically but also culturally, which includes the film industry. Reform and opening up can be viewed as a bridge connecting China and the world. The relatively open policy enabled a large number of foreign films to enter Chinese market, which significantly reshaped Chinese audience impression of films. For the first time in more than a decade, Chinese people got a chance to glance different stories from a different culture. With more foreign actors and actresses' names came to be known, the mind that was once constrained gradually began to liberate. The question had been brought upon Chinese people: if class struggle was no more the objective, what course shall they follow? Reform and opening up didn't adjust cognition, it reshaped it. Impacted by the tide wave of the time, a group of young directors emerged from the crowded, who are nowadays being known as the fifth generation of director. Years of watching and learning from Western films enabled them to tell stories of China from angles no other directors has used or even dared.
Farewell My Concubine, released in 1993, is only Chinese film awarded with both Golden Palm and Golden Globe Award. The story focuses on the emotional entanglements among three main characters and reflects the half-centuries-long historical changes and cultural transformation in Chinese society, from suppression and self-inclusion to the awakening of national consciousness. The film criticized the Cultural Revolution along with its brutal suppression brought upon vulnerable groups such as women and children. In the film, there is a man who passively wastes his life, a man who lives only on stage, and an underclass female character who stands up against patriarchy. By telling stories and fate, this movie awakes strong introspection among the Chinese society. The film style of the fifth generation of director reflects the social and cultural change of modern China. The director of the movie, Chen Haige, represents acceptance of Western ideology, as well as the effort of new generation of directors to transform traditional Chinese aesthetics and unfold it before the world. The Chinese film culture, along with many other art forms, started to help ordinary people undergo self-consciousness awakening and encourage them to confront historical mistakes. Chinese people at this stage may not be even halfway free from blind worship and conservation ideas, but at least they had taken small steps of the right to discourse, the right to know, and the right to supervision.
The transformation of national consciousness has been introduced from a historical perspective as well. The Chinese people's conception of history must be reshaped as the darkness of old era faded away. The redefinition process was not simply repackage the narrative. It required one keystone that was capable of bearing the weight of history, the national character and spirit of Chinese people themselves. Character and spirit involves the course of history that they need history narratives as carried to be delivered on screen.
Hero, a 2002 Chinese war film directed by Zhang Yimou, was the most expensive project and one of the highest grossing motion picture in China. And 2 years later, after the US release, it becomes the first Chinese language movie to place #1 at the American box office. The main character, Nameless, played by Jet Li, symbolizes the resistant and devotional spirit of Chinese people. The first emperor of the unified China, Emperor of Qin, on the other hand, represents another form of Chinese chivalry. The focus of film awaked from individual level to national level in the beginning of second half. Chinese culture has always put group restlessness above individual restlessness. The success of Hero relates not only the outstanding film techniques, but also because the sprint buried within the plot was acknowledged by audience. The dialogue between Nameless and the Emperor is in fact a proper discussion of Chinese national character and spirit. The film focused on consciousness of root thinking. The individual and group righteousness haven't been altered no matter which historical stage of the country. They just submerge and emerge with the cultural traits.
As the cost of independent film production reduces, a group of younger directors come to the fore. Postmodernism ploys focus on truths of daily life from which reflect the whole picture of Chinese society. Despite the fact that Chinese film industry is still under governmental control, nonetheless the preliminary result of ideological emancipation has been observed.
In modern times, more films reflecting social reality have been released than ever before. Audiences shift their focus towards individual destiny. Dying to Survive, a film released in 2018, presenting us a drama themed with realistic modern life about generic medicine. The story is rather simple. An adult store owner smuggled foreigner leukemia drug and made a profit of it. In the end, as interact with more and more patients, the main character decided to do what he can to help as many patients as possible. The main character, Lu Yong, is a leukemia patient himself. After being operated, over 3 patients signed a petition in exchange of sentence bargain. Lu Yong acquitted in 2015. One important line of the plot says there's only one disease in the world, that is, the poverty. The struggle of receiving proper medical treatment among ordinary Chinese people is completely exposed by this film. On July 18, 2018, Chinese Premier Li Keqiang instructed Chinese Health Department to speed up the implementation of relevant medical reform measures, really lower drug prices. Meanwhile, the approval of this film release marks the significant improvement of Chinese film censorship system. A good film not only can resonate with audience emotion, it shall promote social progress and broad introspection, and that's what some of Chinese film are trying to do now and will continue to be doing in the future.